And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We're talking Stefano Domenicali, who has a few, let's say, interesting opinions on the future of Formula One. Now, I'll say interesting, I want to say inverted commas in quotes, because he's kind of the boss. At least represents the bosses, the CEO of Formula One itself, aka Liberty Media, along with obviously the FIA. But these opinions, let's say, they might transgress, go against, be a bit rough when it comes to the mainstream fans and even the hardcore fans of Formula One. Let's try and find out why. So this article was all about, on the race, they had a podcast with Stefano Domenicali, the man, and there's a few quotes from it that I think are somewhat interesting to talk about / slightly concerning. So, Formula One, he suggested here that Formula One shouldn't overreact to how the opening races of the 2026 season play out, and that's the shot across the bow, so to speak, from Stefano Domenicali. And this is amid huge uncertainty about what Grand Prix's new rules are going to be like. We don't know. So, of course, there's going to be some trepidation, and it's quite natural to be critical. But anyway, so let's see what he says. He says in the interview, we don't have to forget that there are two approaches on the new regulations. Okay, Domenicali. And he goes on saying, one is tactical, and the teams are playing the game, and this leads to certain comments and views being made. Now, when he talks about the team playing the game, I'm assuming, for example, if we go back to Christian Horner, talking about the engine regulations are going to be rubbish, the cars are going to run out of juice, let's say, in terms of the engine, the electrical side anyway, powering 50% of the engine down the straights. Okay, so, but I think they're perfectly, even though you're doing it within the media, they're perfectly legit things for the teams to do. They raise their concerns, because if they raise them quietly, would both Formula One and the FIA do anything about it? Perhaps not. But he goes on saying they have some purpose in relation to these, to which is not really the one that we believe, okay, and is the one that is taking them to make some comments. He's just talking rubbish, isn't it? What is he talking about? I'm assuming, it's tactical. Are they playing politics, etc. Maybe. Let's carry on, shall we? The second is because he says it's still on an evolution path. I remember that the real discussion that we had with the FIA and the teams and the drivers at the beginning of the year already today is totally different. Okay, slightly concerning though, because these new regulations are now 4 months away. He says, so before even starting the new regulation, there is an evolution of things that go in the right direction. And where at the beginning he says, I was hearing lift and coast. Already today, this argument is almost fading away. Yes, but aren't they lift and coasting in these very regulations? And the the ERS is not 50-50 like it will be in 2026, Stefano. And we carry on. It's still there in maybe 2 or 3 situations, but I'm pretty convinced that the relation is there between the teams and the FIA, because they are the one that at the end of the day needs to make sure this adjustment of regulation will be solved. Okay, the FIA is the one, working with those teams. So I think they've got every right, reacting in the right way. So it says here, he's not blind, Domenicali, which is a good thing. However, to the prospect of F1 facing some unexpected trouble with the new rules, it's widely accepted there's a risk of the competitiveness of the grid being spread out. Because at the moment, we have that sweet spot. Yeah, McLaren are kind of dominating. When you look at qualifying, we do have that sweet spot of lots of people. We've had Ferrari potentially winning in Hungary. We've had Ferrari winning a sprint race. We've had Red Bull winning. We've had McLaren winning. We've had Mercedes winning. But he goes on saying it would be a mistake for F1 to immediately dive into the rule changes after next year's season opener in terms of being critical if some of the things are not working as hoped. I think that's perfectly fine to be doing that if this is not working, because this is what you told us. He's kind of he's backpedaling now, thinking there's going to be an absolute disaster. But asked how the F1 will approach any potential trouble, he said the mindset is to be open to understand what is happening. It's all absolute tosh at the moment, isn't it? And he says today there are so many theories that everything is possible. The right thing to do is, first of all, not to overreact. Yes, because we have seen in our experience of F1 that sometimes there's been always an overcautious approach. Yep. I mean, not Domenicali, but when it comes to wet weather racing, there absolutely has, and things have developed in different ways. And he says, so I would say, let's wait and see where we are, and then, if there is the need to make some adjustment, we don't have to do it straight away. He says, there is time to wait a little bit to make sure that we understand exactly what we're talking about. I mean, he's becoming a politician, isn't he? When you look at what he's saying, and he carries on saying there could be already potentially some teams and manufacturers that are thinking how to evolve the development of the car, taking the benefit. Now, of course, they're going to be. I mean, people like Adrian Newey and even Mercedes, they're going to want to get the most out of their car, the aerodynamics, any chance they can get. And he said so. The approach will always, to be curious, it's going to be curious. There will be an incredible attention of the first race of the year, absolutely. But is it right to say that there is a need to give the right time and the right discussion with the FIA and the teams to see if there are some big things that we are missing? Yeah, but the problem is that we're living in 2025. I'm not saying you've got to get it right first time, but I don't think you can afford to get it very wrong either. So there's lots of uncertainty. He's saying it's a huge opportunity. There are so many things that are new, and it's a new world to discover. Of course he is. He says, and we have good surprises, because it's not only about the power units, it's about energy management. Boring. And it's also related to the fact that the cars will be different. Interesting. How many people care about the energy management? The hardcores, I care in a way. I'm a hardcore F1 fan. I watch everything, and I think it's interesting. But even today, when you look on the Formula 1 graphics, how much is really given to how much power they have this lap, etc. Very rarely do we get those graphics, and some people have pandered for this. They don't care too much about it at the moment. He goes on by saying, so the way you manage that, the way you're able to set up in order not to destroy the tyres, yeah, okay, there's so many things that we will learn next year. He says, I'm pretty sure if we do 2 pictures, one in the first race in Melbourne and one at the last race in Abu Dhabi, we'll see 2 different worlds. Yeah, I think he's got a point there. Yeah, we potentially will see 2 different worlds. So the next thing Dominicali is talking about, we're talking about sprint races, reverse grids, etc., which I think is quite interesting. Okay, so he plans to discuss with the team the idea of more sprint races, as well as, yeah, I said it, reverse grids. What do we all feel about that? Well, F1 looks set to stick with the current 6 sprint events for the start of these new rules era in 2026. We're already moving towards expanding that longer schedule. Let's hope that's not the case. So we do enough, but let's get into it. So there is an openness about it, and he's come out and said, I do believe there are possibilities to extend 2 things, which we need to discuss, both with the drivers and the teams, of course, and with the FIA. Okay. He said that we can apply sprint races with more races, and this is the right formula to have the possibility to have. Is this the right formula? And I think it's important. He's asking the question, saying, is this the right formula to have reverse grids? Citing that we have them for Formula 2 and Formula 3. Their points of discussion. Okay. On the right wavelength. He says, I think that we are getting there we're getting to be more mature to make sure that this point is tackled seriously with the teams. That I'm a bit he says tackled with the teams. Does that mean he's going to try and convince them? I mean, Captain Subtext here. He goes on to say, the vibes to progress in this direction are definitely growing, and therefore I'm ready to present and to discuss not only more sprints, but if there are new formats, new ideas, I think that's refreshing. So, where once F1 teams and the majority of fans have been against any suggestion of a reverse grid format, I'm pretty sure over half of them are still against it. Dominicali believes that the resistance has now softened. I think it has a bit, but not as much as he probably thinks it has. And there's the feedback from teams and drivers indicating there is now a mindset to try different things, so 2 fans seemingly want more from sprints. Now, here's interesting. A poll in the race's YouTube community asking what the future of sprint should be showed many didn't want them at all. Okay, sorry Stefano, 44% showed many, 44% didn't want them at all. So I did say it's kind of split down the middle. However, of those in favour of keeping the sprints but wanting changes to them, the idea of reverse grids earned overwhelming support. And I said, okay, I mean, if that's what the masses go with, not myself, I don't like that idea. I say leave that obviously to the touring cars, etc. Domenicali is clear that he is more than willing to try new ideas such as reverse grids out. The whole thing is, how do you do that? How do you do that? He says we are open for that because I think that's the right thing, to listen to our fans, to try to create something and not to be worried to do mistakes. The one who believes to do no mistakes doesn't do anything new. Very wise, completely understand. I think, okay, there they are there on their podcast, fair enough. He said what Domenicali said will not happen, however, is for F1 to go back to a normal racing weekend, which I think for some sucks. Now, and this is where the money thing comes in. Here we go, especially with demand for promoters to host them. Now, there's a couple of reasons why. One, gives you a reason to come on Friday, gives you more people a reason to come on Saturday. The Sunday, we're good. So it's all down to money. And the promoters want the money, especially places, for example, like your Silverstones, your Spas, a lot of the European races that are not necessarily funded by the government. Because, Stefano Domenicali, you're asking far too much money to host. That's why. That's one of the reasons why. But it gets more people watching Formula 1, I guess. On the TV, I'm not so sure. In terms of like interest, at the moment, you know, the sprint is kind of a renaissance. More people watch the sprint, granted, than that practice session. So, okay, maybe he has a point. I think that the sprint, whatever, will be the right format. We need to have it. It will represent the future. He says MotoGP have taken hold the bold step of having sprints at all races all of its weekends. And he thinks that F1 will not get to that point in a hurry. No, I think you can't compare it with MotoGP. And again, because their main race on a Sunday is kind of like half a Grand Prix in terms of time, 45 minutes-ish, give or take. So I can understand why they have that sprint Saturday at 3. I think it's at 3 o'clock UK time. The actual race is 1 o'clock UK time on the Sunday. And I think that works perfect for MotoGP, not necessarily for Formula 1. He says, I'm not saying no, but I think that between 6 and 24, we have to do steps in the middle, he said. Well, I guess why not just have the whole hog and have sprint weekends full stop, if you're going to have them. Now, this is where I think it's slightly controversial. And this is where Domenicali transforms into Domenicali. Now, he's eyeing an increase in the number of sprint races. Okay, get it. Yeah. He stood firm in his belief that F1 is on the right trajectory, in his opinion. It is an opinion. You can decide it's wrong. That's what's so good about this world. But here we go. With our YouTube poll showing 44% of respondents would prefer a 19 to 21 race calendar, Domenicali puts himself into the same category as the 25% of fans who think 22 to 24 is the ideal number. I think 22 to 24 is too much. I agree with the 44%. So, Domenicali, you are disagreeing with nearly half your fans. Should they get a new leader? Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, so 16 to 18 races. That's when I started watching. 12%. 19 to 21, 44%. I think that's a good number. More than 25, crazy. We're not NASCAR, but 19%, fair enough. 22 to 24. 25%. And he said, today the number of partners that not only we have, but also the teams have, means that the platform is valuable. I agree with you there. Absolutely. And he said, when I say valuable, I go back to the point that it is the right in terms of commercial offer. If it wouldn't be right, it wouldn't be so popular. Yeah, you got things like Drive to Survive in that 2021 season. The hangover from that is still sort of there. And he goes on saying, so that's why I do believe that I can write myself in the 25% of your poll, because that is the right number that is sustainable from the commercial and also from this point's perspective. Okay. And he said, don't forget one thing which is relevant, I believe. We are in a world where content is very important to be attractive or relevant. Okay. So he says, we only have 24 races. Okay. Football has 70 games, baseball 165 every day on TV. So to not generate content to be attractive with only, I'd say, 24 races is a massive task. Yeah, a football event is about an hour and a half, isn't it? Granted, you know, unless we go to extra time. I'm not sure how long a bigger baseball game is, but I think for F1 is bigger than baseball. I mean, the only thing that competes with Formula 1 we're talking is the World Cup, the Football World Cup, the Euros possibly in Europe, and the Summer and the Winter Olympics are the only thing that kind of get the numbers. But Domenicali, what I think is interesting, he's moaning about his 24 races, boo-hoo. So, let's have, I mean, this is one thing I wanted to show you, okay? In relation to Formula 1 and how much viewing time we get. So, the number of race weekends, we have 24, 6 of them are sprint. Practice, 60 minutes each. So standard weekends have FP1, FP2, FP3, so that's 3 hours total. Sprint weekends have only FP1, which is 1 hour. So the Grand Prix qualifying on track, we're looking at 45 minutes. Sprint qualifying is about 30 minutes. This is on-track action. The average Grand Prix race time, say 90 minutes. Typical sprint race time, say 30 minutes. Okay, on to the next. Now we're looking at step by step. When you look at the practice 3 times 60 is 180 minutes. Qualifying is 45. The race on average is 90. So, per standard weekend is 5.5, just shy of 5.5 hours. Sprint weekend is about 4.5 hours because we're taking away that practice. Let's keep going. Standard weekends, we've got 18. Sprint weekends, we've got 6. So in total is 120 hours for Formula 1, which is quite a lot. Races, 24 times 1.5, 36 hours. Grand Prix qualifying, 18 hours. Sprint qualifying, 3 hours. Sprint races, 3 hours. Practice is going to be 60 hours. That's a fair bit. 120 hours of Grand Prix action. Stefano Domenicali. It's not that bad, is it, really, when you put it in that massive task? No, I don't think so. You look at how popular Formula 1's getting. He's just talking rubbish. Now let's have a look at some other comments. Reverse grids. Then we need cheerleading girls and also the pre-race shakedown showdown, like in Texas that one time. Get them to swap cars. This is really going to save F1. Well done, FOM. Free races in America, I don't mind that, but a race in Miami and Las Vegas, I do mind that. Discerning fans, yeah, right, we are but a frustrated minority with no rights nor vote. You vote with your wallets, which eventually people were doing. Let's be fair, 2023, everything was going down. The audiences were going down because of Max dominance, okay? Yes, he had a fantastic season. The audience were going down. The mentions on social media going down. When that happens, the money goes down because people don't want to invest in Formula 1. And that's obviously a concern that Domenicali's got about the new rules. We have one team dominating and it's kind of boring. People, the casual fan, which Formula 1 needs for the money, are going to switch off. I'm not saying the Drive to Survive crowd because that has made hardcore fans. But the casual fan that's like, okay, I'm not doing anything. Someday I'm going to watch Formula 1. Oh no, it's boring. I won't bother. I'll do something else. In, you know, the TV flickers, etc. Eccleston's adage of running F1 like a 5-star restaurant and not a burger joint was obviously wrong. Thumbs up. Really like this. Interesting. See what they say about here. We've got here. Sounds like they expect an awful product out of the gate. This is on the 2026 rules. But don't judge us on how the opening races of 26 play out. Yeah. Or in the immortal words, don't judge us on our motor racing masquerade, but on our market share. Could not have put it better myself about Domenicali, what he's saying. That's how I read it, someone's put. Wasn't this narrative trotted out in 97, 98 when the groove tyres were introduced? Yeah, I believe it was. I personally like the groove tyres, but I recognised... I thought they were okay. I thought that in the end, I thought they were okay. We all have our guilty secrets. F1 and NASCAR have a lot in common. They keep giving long-time fans the complete opposite of what they're asking for, eventually. Now, not that I want to talk about wrestling on a Formula 1 /motorsport podcast, but that's something very much where that happened with WCW. If you remember, they were dominating world wrestling entertainment. They rested on their laurels thinking they had a better product. They didn't do anything about it. All the fans told them they had a worse product, and then in the end the fans left for something else. Not that I'm saying that's going to happen to Formula 1 straight away, but it's not the straight away that happens. The damage is done sometimes years down the road, and then you get something worse than angry fans. You have apathy. Fans that don't care. We're nowhere near that stage at the moment, and I don't think we've even started. But I understand that's one concern. Absolutely. So anyway, I digress. If you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That'll be very good. If you are absolutely dead against what Domenicali thinks, comment below and let me know. And until then, stay safe, speak to you soon, etc.